Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Sunday Night Sit Down. I am your host, Miracle Jones. I'm so thankful for you tuning in this Saturday to learn more about candidates who are running for office. As a reminder, the Sunday Night Sit Down is where we talk one on one with people who are running, get to know who they are, a little bit about their policies, their politics, and what encouraged them to join and enter in the wonderful world of politics. So this evening, it is my pleasure to welcome NaTisha Washington, who is a write-in candidate for the 24th Legislative District for the special election on April 5th. With that, welcome, NaTisha.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're so happy you are here with us this evening. And so, to learn a little more about you, can you just talk a little bit about what motivated you to enter into this race for the 24th?
Growing up, I always wanted and had a passion to improve my community. And throughout time, I started working with a lot of nonprofits to deal with a lot of community issues, mostly around environmental, because that's where my education was. And then I started to run into a lot of barriers that prevented me from doing a lot of the um, solving of community issues that I had to deal with. And then I started learning a lot more about policy. I got into working with 1PA as environmental justice organizer, started to see how policy could move and change a lot of the issues, and just really dived head first into the political world to try to make impact through policy change with a lot of the issues that I was already dealing with and advocating for in my nonprofit work.
Thank you so much for that. And I know you talked a little bit about the work you've done in environmental background. What do you think makes you uniquely qualified to be a candidate in this race?
I think my community advocacy. So growing up in Wilkinsburg, being raised around Pittsburgh, have many family around the Pittsburgh area. I think having that information of knowing what's been going on in the community, the issues that a lot of residents have been dealing with, a lot of the solutions that they want to see happen in those communities, having those conversations on the ground, door knocking, canvassing, talking to as many residents as possible to understand what's going on in the community, I think, makes me have an advantage in this race as far as understanding what's happening a lot on the grounds and what political changes a lot of the residents want to see. Doing my advocacy work, I hear a lot on what policies people are interested in learning more about and changing. So having that information, I think I could do a lot of great change of already knowing where to go.
Thank you so much for that. And you're talking about doing this grassroots campaign. Is there a political leader or figure that you are drawing inspiration from as you run your race?
Yeah, I mean, many people. So I will say I did see the Knock Down the House documentary, and I was inspired by how AOC did her grassroots campaigning, and it did really motivate me to think like, oh, I can do this from the grassroots. Like I don't have to be a career politician to run a campaign that's led by my community, and I can get the support of my community to run such a campaign. And of course, I'm a big fan of both of the Obamas, Michelle and Barack, Maxine Waters, Stacey Abrams. A lot of the Black women I've seen in politics have inspired me. And even some of our local politicians that we have, especially like Summer Lee, have been really inspirational for me.
Thank you. People talk about this race right now in Pennsylvania. I think the word has been unprecedented. It's an unprecedented time. How
Yes.
has just this whole election cycle, this battle for, over the maps impacted you as a candidate?
Yeah, it's actually impacted me a lot as a candidate that's running in Wilkinsburg, because my district could or could not be a part of the 24th district, depending on the maps, which affects my campaign because it determines whether I can run in the primary campaign or not. I have known about the redistricting process for a year or so now. And it is still just as confusing as it was when I first learned about it because so much is changing. It's like the maps are final, but they're not final. And then seeing just recently on Twitter the issue with the congressional maps and how they were drawn out, I just have had like a issue understanding, knowing, accepting what's happening with the maps, but also using it as a time to really understand even more about politics and how the mapping is important and how important it is to the future of our politics and who is in our political seats.
And you talked about this being like a learning process. And at the top of the hour, you talked about being really rooted in environmental work. How do
Mhm.
you foresee your past experiences as a community organizer, really rooted in environmental justice, um, giving you the support to run as a state rep and to actually make changes in Harrisburg?
So I will say, when I was working in 1PA and being a part of the campaigning for our new mayor at Gainey, it started to really help me see how campaigning could be, how a successful campaign can be run, and seeing the support of community, seeing the support of committees, seeing the support of all these unions, all these different advocates, even advocates statewide, coming together to help push for this big change in our city that was historical. It really helped me see and understand like just how powerful people power is, how powerful the community voice is, how supportive people are of making sure that the community is heard and listened to. That's really pushed and motivated me to focus a lot of my campaign on community engagement because of what I've seen in a lot of the campaigns that I've seen a lot of people run that have gotten into these seats that a lot of brown and black people have not gotten into before.
Gotcha. And you're talking about doing grassroots, talking to people, listening to people as you canvass, the 24th district where you're from. What are some of the issues that people are talking to you about, and how do you foresee being able to impact those issues once you get to Harrisburg?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the issues, especially in my community of Wilkinsburg, people are trying to understand and see the future of development in their communities. So we do have a lot of community plans in the city, and we do have this current merger situation in Wilkinsburg where people are focusing a lot on, how the development of commercial districts, of vacant homes in these communities are. And a lot of people are concerned about the impact that that can bring because of what people saw happening to Liberty. A lot of people are fearing that that will happen to their community. So I wanted to advocate a lot on affordable housing, on inclusionary zoning, making sure that the workforce that is contracted for a lot of development in these communities are from these communities to make sure that this process of development that has to happen because we have all these vacant lands and vacant homes in these communities is a process that's not still and continuing to displace a lot of Black people in our communities to outside of the city. So that is one thing that I know I want to push a lot for. Of course, I'm also a big education advocate. I hear a lot of people complain about the quality of education for their students, especially with a lot of our Wilkinsburg students now in Westinghouse and Woodland Hills. We see not only the issues that we were having here with our education, but now in the city and how it's impacting our youth. So those are like two big issues that I always try to advocate for. They're not environmental issues, and people ask me a lot, what do you advocate for outside of environmental? And one of the things I try to explain a lot is through my work of advocacy, I've had to deal with a lot of issues outside of environmental because I had to deal with utility affordability, people who are having basement floodings, their homes weren't weatherized, the children at school didn't have any outside education, trying to have healthy schools so that kids weren't drinking lead. These are all things that have pulled me into advocacies of all forms. So there's so many things that I want to do, but I would say those are like top tier issues that I hear all the time is housing, education, of course, the health of our community, which is how I got a lot into environmental work.
Thank you. You talked a lot of it about like the health and the safety of the community. And as you know, over the past couple of years, it's been a conversation about how healthy and safe this region is, particularly for Black women, but for Black people overall. As a state rep, what are some of the things that you would be advocating for or look towards to push to correct, some of the negative social determinants of health that make this a very unsafe region for Black folks?
Yeah, so, of course, as an environmental advocate, one of the things that I really want to push for is making sure that these permits and these regulations of these emissions, these environmental harms, lead contamination that's inside the home and outside the home are being dealt with because we are seeing a lot of reports around here, especially the reports that talk about the disparities, the health disparities of Black and Brown people in our community, that a lot of these environmental harms, especially lead that's been in our water and in our homes, is impacting the health of a lot of our residents at like a enormous rate. I mean, our asthma rate for children is, I believe, 2 times the state level and 3 times the national level. So for me, a lot of what I want to do to help with these health issues is lower those emissions, make healthcare affordable and affordable for all people. One of the things that still baffles me today is the fact that a lot of our health workers that have been helping us through the pandemic don't have health care, affordable health care to take care of themselves. And for me, that's like the most ridiculous thing in the world to hear. So making sure that people have the health care that they need, making sure that they don't have these environmental harms, increasing their health to be even worse, and making sure that the communities that we are living in have resources that can help with their health, making sure they have healthy food, making sure that they have pharmacies that are nearby, making sure that seniors have resources where they can live a good quality life, making sure that kids have food in their homes even when they're not in school. So so many things that of course I want to push, but definitely making sure that our neighborhoods have the resources to be healthy and the protection from these, health departments, from these government officials that are supposed to ensure that we live these healthy, good quality lives.
Thank you so much for that. And you're talking, like you really have a plan, for the future, and you're talking with different people, in your community, but you're also living the reality of what's going on with like the election and the planning.
Yeah.
So, as you're engaging folks, how are you talking about election security, Act 77, and making sure that people not only feel comfortable to come out and vote, but know that their vote is safe and that it will count?
Yeah, this has actually been like a hard subject for me because, seeing all of the injustices that are happening to our voting rights has been kind of a hard reality pill to swallow. For me, working where I work, like making sure that people's votes are being counted is like the biggest part of our mission, and making sure that people are educated around that is a big part of our mission at 1PA. So I would be doing a lot of the stuff that I already do, is making sure that we can find ways to ensure that their voting rights are secure, making sure that we're up on what's going on, making sure that we can find ways to get people to the polls if they can't get to the polls, helping people get educated on, what's going on, because a lot of people don't even know like what's happening. They just know that, oh, they might take away some of our rights to do the voting and how we've been doing it for the past 2 years. So making sure people are educated, making sure they have the resources, whatever barriers that they are having to vote, making sure that those are dismissed, and also just building up the confidence in people to know that like this is your people power, like this is your right, this is what's going to make sure that your voice and your decision is heard, and that the people that are for what you're for are being put in these positions, and that we're not just having people in these seats because we aren't able to make sure our voice is heard. I want to make sure that people know that, this is your constitutional right. This is the thing that's going to make sure that your community is being followed through on with the person that you're saying that, oh, I want them to run for my community. I think, I'm so sorry. You mind if I drink water? I know
Yeah.
this. Thank you. Oh, sorry about that.
It's totally okay.
But just making sure that people understand that this is the people power that we need to make change. If we don't go out and vote, these seats will stay the same. And we won't have the people that we need advocating for us in these seats, because we wouldn't be making the decision. And we need to be able to make that decision that we're in this together. Any way that we can help, any way that we can support. There's so many organizations now that are trying to make sure that people are voting. We need to lean on those resources and build up our people power, and make sure that no matter what they put in front of us, that we can get through it and have the people in place that are going to fight for us, so that we can get a lot of that stuff back that was taken away from us.
Thank you for that. And I think that's like, really important that you have a very people centered campaign. And as you're going out and you're talking to people, you're inspiring them and you're encouraging. There's also the reality that when you get to Harrisburg, you can't just put up whatever bill you want. There's a
Yeah.
lot of networking, there's a lot of politics that goes
Hmm.
along with being a state representative. So, how do you think you would go about managing the realities versus the
Hmm.
expectations of a job? Because there, like you said, there are a lot of issues happening in the region, but the reality is it may not um, be able to be really changed or
Hmm.
impacted immediately.
Yeah. Um, Well, I think one thing is, I know that, people are like, those people that are in Harrisburg, a lot of them are white Republican men, why are they going to listen to me? And a lot of the times I just tell people, at the end of the day, we're all human beings that live this same life experience. And I think a lot of the things that are happening in our community, because it is so, not seen and not heard, and it's not, as loud as it needs to be a lot of times, that people aren't seeing all the issues that we're dealing with. That when people hear that real person experience, when people were hearing that a lot of children were getting lead poisoning and it was messing with their development to have like a good education because it was damaging their brain, a lot of people who have children were then thinking, oh, well, that could happen to my child. We need to fix this. So there are things that people can understand as a human, that, this is an issue for all of us. This is not just the issue that's affecting my community. It is an issue that is affecting all of our children, all of our people. And then understanding that these people are voted into these spaces. And a lot of the people around PA are low income people. There are a lot of rural people. There are a lot of Appalachian people that are living the same experience and having the same issues that we have been having for a long time. And I think connecting with those people, connecting on like a statewide level, that I also learned from my work is very powerful. So I go back to the people power, like building up people in all these different areas across the state, connecting with the Black communities that are all across the area, all these low income communities, these voters who are voting these people into these positions, connecting with them and letting them understand and know that, this is your power. These are things that can change to make life better, not only for us, but us that are here in the cities, but all of us that live within this state. I think that a good connection can be made and a good understanding can be made with that, because at the end of the day, we all want to live a good quality life. And if that's all of our goals, there can be a middle ground. Now, how much they'll listen to me, is yet to be seen. But one thing that I do know is that the facts are the facts, the reality is the reality. And a lot of people are not living a good life, and a lot of people are angry, a lot of people are upset, a lot of people are really tired of what's happening in politics, and a lot of people want to see change. So that is definitely something that is so useful in this time that we can use to push these bigger changes that we want.
Thank you so much for that. And as we kind of bring our interview to a close, one of the things I did want to talk to you about is, like you mentioned, the future of Wilkinsburg and the potential merger and everything that is happening. Regardless of this election outcome, what is one of the things that you hope that happens to Wilkinsburg?
Um, I think the awareness of what's going on in Wilkinsburg, I think, is one of the things that we have gained from this that I think has been beneficial. So, being a borough that is separate from the city, but right next to the city, a lot of our issues weren't really paid attention to. Like, there are so many issues that we have around here that nobody really speaks up on. We do have a divide in our borough that a lot of people weren't speaking up on. And I think this merger brought out a lot of thoughts, opinions, experiences that people didn't know were even happening in Wilkinsburg. And now we have a lot of people all over the city that are seeing what's going on in our community. So I am one thankful that now a lot of people are seeing the issues that we've been having in Wilkinsburg, but I also hope that through all this that there is a way or offer or some support in getting our borough more resources, helping us do more engagement so that we can make something possible that is beneficial to our community. I think that having our voices heard is something that's really amazing right now. But I think with us being such a borough that's been lacking in resources, just like many other boroughs around here and other municipalities around here, um, I think that resources is one of the things that has been such a barrier for some of our smaller communities in the county. And I think having access to those or having like a collaborative support of that can really change a lot of what's going on in our communities.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think that is a very like well-rounded, holistic, answer and very like optimistic. Because I think that a lot of times politics we think that has to be a very divisive engagement, but in reality, it's just people advocating for their communities. Then it doesn't have to be this negative, ugly situation. So I really appreciate your positive,
Exactly.
outtakes.
Thank you.
And like we mentioned at the very beginning, you're a write-in candidate. You need people to put your name down on the ballot. So can you just talk
Yes.
a little bit about how people can get contact with your campaign, how people can learn more about like your vision and policies?
Yeah, so I do have a website. It's NaTisha for FORPA24.com. So all my information, donation page, sign up for my newsletter, all of that stuff is on my website, on all of my social media platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. you can put at NaTisha for FORPA24, and you will see my profile, and you can email me at info at NaTisha for PA24.com or NaTisha for PA24 at gmail.com. I do have myself and my team that do manage all the information that comes into that. We will also be having some coffee meetups, some canvassing events, some community events where we're going to try to engage people, in person, which is great to have sometimes in this pandemic world. And we will be doing some door knocking. So I will be giving as many opportunities to meet face to face with people, engage with people during this campaign.
Thank you. And regardless of the outcome, what is the hope that you have for your campaign?
I think, regardless of the outcome, I kind of just I'm new to politics, and this is something that I'm finding is my passion career. So it's something I'm not leaving. It's something I plan on doing for my career full term. So I'm happy to just get into this world, understand how to go about campaigning, meeting more people in the community, engaging people on a political level, understanding more about the policies people want to see and the changes people want to see. I'm just glad to, be in this world, be starting this political career, and hoping that I can, move forward regardless of the outcomes and a seat in the future in politics.
And the question we always ask people is, what is bringing you joy? Like we said, politics, it's long days, long nights, dealing with a lot of personalities. What is
Yeah.
giving you joy, and what is like sustaining you to do the work that you do?
Many things. So I've been doing a lot of self-care recently. I would say when it's warm outside, gardening is my joy. It's my passion. It's something that I went to school to do as well. So it really helps me stay grounded, and it makes me feel really good to watch my plants grow. But also music has helped. I love music and dancing. I think people miss a lot of the messages in music, but it can be very motivational at times. So music and gardening have been my joy.
Well, thank you so much, NaTisha
Thank
Washington,
you.
candidate for the legislative 24th district for the April 5th special election, for joining us today. I hope you have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you. Same to you.
And as we said, the April 5th election date is coming down. It is looming. It is right around the corner. As a reminder, if you live in the 19th and 24th district, you have not one but two election cycles coming up. You are voting on April 5th to find the replacements for Representative Gainey and Wheatley, who now, of course, are working in the mayoral office. And then on May 17th, you are taking a primary to see who will have these same seats for the next 2 years. A lot of candidates are moving from the April 5th election to the May primary, but it's very important to remember you have two elections a little over a month apart. If you live in the 19th or the 24th districts, if currently Representative Gainey and Representative Wheatley were your state reps, you have until March 24th, until March 21st to register to vote, and March 29th to request your mail-in ballot if you do not want to go and vote in person on election day, April 5th. So please remember, you have two elections coming up. It's going to be a very interesting and engaging election year. We now have our congressional maps, but we are still waiting on our state legislative maps to know what our election is going to look like. And so we will still be doing our forums here at One Hood Power. We'll be still doing our scorecards, but we are slightly delayed because we're still waiting to see if the primary date is going to be moved and if anything is going to change because we still do not have our legislative maps. We're in the final days of the period where you can contest the maps and file any type of response, a legislative or litigative response. So we're very close to having an election, but not quite there. So, with that, as a reminder, please make sure you're registered to vote. Thank you so much for NaTisha Washington for coming to sit with us. We have some really cool things coming this week. I can't really tell you what it is, but what I will say is you want to make sure you're tuned in to One Hood Media's page on Monday at 5 o'clock to learn about some really cool initiatives going on in the city. And if you have some time, make sure you go back and look at our Defense of Black Lives rally to talk about ways that you can get involved to make this region healthier, safer, and more welcoming for Black people. With that, I'm your host, Miracle Jones. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.